Alright guys, welcome to another video from XF Motorsports. It's finally time to start work on the E55 that we're going to be manual swapping. We're going to be putting a transmission from a 350Z in this car. It is going to be a bit of a long process, so we're going to do it in a few parts. For this first part, we're going to be making the billet aluminum adapter that is going to enable us to bolt this 350Z transmission to a Mercedes engine. And Karen's going to explain how we're actually going to make it.
So we're going to be using the bolt pattern from the Mercedes engine and using the CNC machine to create matching adapters for the transmission and the engine to put them together.
Yep, and once we have the adapter made in this video, then from that part on in the next video, we're actually going to be taking the automatic transmission out of this car, bolting the 350Z transmission in there, and after that we're going to have to figure the transmission mount at the back, the drive shaft, and also the shifter location. And well, that's probably going to be in part 2 then, and then from that point on it's just going to be about working on the electronics and yeah, getting the whole thing working. So I'm pretty excited about this one. Let's start work by making the adapters, and then after that get into all the rest of it. So just to quickly show you guys the car and the transmission before getting into everything else. So this is the transmission from the 350Z, and the reason I chose the 350Z transmission over any other transmission for this manual swap is because this is an amazing transmission. First of all, the gear ratios work perfectly with the E55 engine, and the diff ratio and everything is something that I've already tried in that car. I chose the 350Z transmission for that one. In fact, you can see the transmission right there, and it's a swap that worked absolutely amazing. Perfectly reliable, no problems at all handling the power. And the other amazing thing about these transmissions is that new transmissions like this one are still available from Nissan that you can buy for fairly cheap. And of course the aftermarket options are just insane. You can get sequential transmissions in the same bolt pattern that literally bolt on. Clutch options everywhere from multi-disc clutches to single disc racing clutches. And so basically once this kit is developed, anyone is going to be able to buy it and literally bolt this transmission into the car with the minimum amount of fabrication required. So there's going to be no cutting the bell housing or modifying the engine in any way, so that everything can be bolted on. So starting off by quickly showing you guys the design that I have come up with to make these engine and transmission bolt together. So this is the design. It's actually, I've had to design two separate adapters. One is going to bolt to the engine, one is going to bolt to the transmission, and then they both will get bolted together. It's a fairly complex design just because the 350Z transmission and the Mercedes engine have really similar bell housing sizes, and there's quite a few bolts that overlap. So yeah, for the design I initially went through quite a few different designs and simulated what would work and what wouldn't work. So this was one of the earlier failed designs, and you can see that this one had quite a few weak points. But this was the final design that I came up with, and this one is definitely going to work because all the forces look pretty good. It's a pretty efficient design actually, and the weight of this adapter, well, the weight of both the top part and the lower part of the adapter is going to be 4 kilograms, which is half the weight of the adapter that I previously made for my car. That was 8 kilograms. So yeah, fairly strong, really lightweight. And next it was time to move on to the G-code. And here's a quick simulation of how the machine is actually going to cut the part. And yeah, next it's time to feed all this G-code to the CNC machine and hope that we end up with the same adapters. So after we're done with everything in the software and the G-code is all generated, it is time to set up the CNC machine, and Karen, the CNC expert, is doing that. So now all our tools are set. The zero is set, the tool is clamped in place, and everything should be good if we have done our job correctly. So now is the nervous moment of actually pressing the green button on the machine and letting it take over and hope that everything goes okay. Yeah, let's press the green button. Okay, we're on the wrong tool, so it's going to change the tool first. We keep the feed rate really slow so that if we have screwed up on something, we can stop the machine in time. %? Perfect. Here's a final look at one side of the adapter after it is all complete. This is the side that is going to go on the Mercedes engine. I've actually engraved everything on it, so it's going to be easier to install whenever someone is installing it. Also, all the torque specs are engraved on there for all the bolts that are going to bolt through this adapter to the engine, just so that there's not going to be any looking around for torque specs when you actually have to install it. So next it was on to milling the 350Z side of the adapter. So pretty much a similar process in terms of all the tools and how we made it. Here's a final look at the adapters after they are all milled, and they're looking pretty good. So this is the transmission side. I've engraved everything on it, so it says CD09 side. This is the part that goes on the transmission. That's the part that goes on the engine. And I'm going to be bolting this transmission and the broken engine together really soon. After the middle part, the flywheel adapter is also done, but for now I can just put this one adapter on the engine and show you guys how everything lines up. Or well, Karen is going to do that for me because it's gonna make my job easier. There you go. So yeah, it just lines up on the alignment dowels on the engine. Everything lines up perfectly actually, and all the bolting points, you can see they line up. Yeah, that's all looking really good. The part that is left now is what I was actually measuring right now. It's to get this flywheel bolted on the Mercedes engine. So to get the bolting point of the flywheel right, to get this 350Z flywheel bolted onto the Mercedes engine, I really wanted to make an adapter that could bolt any 350Z clutch onto this engine, so that people have all different flywheel options and clutch options. So if someone wants to go with a multi-disc clutch, they don't have to stick with whatever flywheel comes with this kit. So I decided to go with the same solution that I used in that car to make adapters that are going to bolt onto this engine, that are going to change the bolt pattern from this weird Mercedes bolt pattern to this simple 8-bolt Nissan bolt pattern, so that any clutch that fits onto the 350Z is going to be able to fit on, literally bolt on to this car without any modifications or adding shims or any of that. So yeah, I was doing some measurements for that, working out where the clutch position turns out to be with these adapters, and it's actually pretty close to, the design has turned out really close to what I did in that car, so I copied my design a little bit, and that's the part that we're at right now. So for making the flywheel adapters, we're using a round piece of aluminum, and Karen is setting everything up. She's finding the edge for this one, and then for this one, the zero position, we've used it as the center of the circle, just because there's no corners on a circle, so it would have been hard to do that. So we're going to find this edge, and then she's going to move over, find the other edge, and divide that by 2. That's going to be the center of the circle. And after that, it's just going to be onto the G-code and cutting this part. For this adapter too, we've also had to make it in 2 different pieces because yeah, there's no way to match the bolt pattern in one piece. It would have been possible to match the bolt pattern if these engines actually came in 2 different bolt patterns. One had 8 bolts spaced evenly apart, and the other engines had this bolt pattern, which is 8 bolts but not spaced evenly apart, with this really weird bolt pattern. So when you try to match this bolt pattern with this one, there's quite a lot of bolts that like overlap each other. That's why it's not possible to do with one adapter. For this one, I believe the years after 06 are the ones that come with this funny bolt pattern. We are going to be making the adapter in this bolt pattern for now, but later on, I think for that actually 55, we might have to make another adapter that's the older bolt pattern, because this one is a 2005. I'm not sure what bolt pattern it has, and actually even asking the dealers, they don't know what bolt pattern it has. I'm using the VIN number, so it's just something that we'll have to find out when we take out the transmission. Okay, so everything should be set for the flywheel adapter now. It's just time to hit the green button again and see if we get the right part again this time. Go for it, Karen. Okay, so finally the part is done. Let's have a look at it and hope that it has gone proper. Yeah, that's the annoying part. Cool. Wow, that looks pretty cool. Okay, now next we gotta flip it over, put it back in the machine, and we're only gonna do a facing operation on this side, take away all the stock, and then all the holes should become through holes, and then that should be our part. So once the adapters are all done, the final part is taking all the measurements that Karen's going to do for every single adapter. We're going to measure the alignment dowels, whether they're thick enough, the thickness of each adapter, the runoff on that thing, the thickness of that thing, and yeah, just making sure that everything is within spec. And lastly then, Karen's going to put the serial number on each one. And basically we have a test data sheet that we fill in when we take all these measurements, and that data sheet is going to have the same serial number on it as the part is going to have, so that to make sure that every single part we're shipping out, we know that the specifications of the part are like whatever they are. So it's just a way to make sure that like the quality is going to be good for everything. So the last step left was to make the other side of the flywheel adapter that the 350Z flywheel actually bolts on. And I would say this was the hardest part out of all of them because, well, first of all these bolts had really long threads, so really deep holes needed to be drilled into it. And secondly, it had to be flipped over and machined from the other side as well. And of course, it needed to be perfectly concentric because if it's off center, then it's the rotating part, it would be completely useless. Here's a look at the part after it is all machined, and it is looking super cool. The precision on these machines is amazing. Like this part, half of it was done from the underside, the other half of this thing was made from the top side, and you cannot even like feel the slightest lip or something on it. It's just all smooth. There's like no line or anything on it. That's amazing how good the precision is. Last thing I want to check right away is that I want to put this pilot bearing in there and see if it's, oh yeah, it's a really tight fit. Yeah, I bet if I put it in there it's not even gonna come out again. I'm just gonna take it out. I wanted to check this because the zero and everything is already set, so if I wanted to open this a bit more I would have been able to, but I don't think I need to. This is a really good fit. Yeah, that's the amazing thing with these machines. Literally the first time you put the numbers in, everything just turns out exactly the same, so that's really good. Next, what I need to do is, there's only one operation left, that is rigid tapping, and the reason I made that a separate operation is because I really need to keep an eye on the machine when it's tapping these holes, because these are really deep holes, and if the tap gets stuck or if the tap breaks, then I immediately need to stop the machine. So now both the flywheel adapters are done, and I'm super excited to put this together. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test fit everything on this broken CLS engine just to make sure that everything actually fits. And just look at how good of a fit everything is. Everything just like snaps into place. There's like no extra play in anything, but it's not too tight either that it like goes on with like too tight or anything. So yeah, everything just like fits on perfectly. It's amazing. I can't wait to put this together and see how everything lines up. So yeah, let's do that right now, and then I'm going to be taking this off, and of course in the next video then it's going to be onto this car, taking the transmission out of this and actually fitting this transmission in to the proper engine. So I'm super excited. So finally, after all that work, we have managed to bolt a brand new 350Z transmission with a broken CLS engine that doesn't even work, but it all lines up perfectly. Everything goes in place. It's also turning the engine with the 350Z drive shaft. It all turns freely, other than the fact that the engine is broken and it has a few bits of piston inside it. But yeah, there's no binding on the clutch or anything with the bell housing. The transmission input shaft, I believe, is nicely centered. Well, it should be nicely centered, because everything goes on alignment dowels. Everything is ridiculously precisely made. So yeah, it's looking extremely good so far. So here's a look at everything that is going to be coming with this transmission adapter kit. I've laid everything out at the front so that I can show you guys. It's going to come with 2 transmission adapters. This, by the way, is going to fit any M113 engine, M112 engines, any Mercedes engine that came with the same bolt pattern, really. So the M156 even, it has a really similar bolt pattern to this. I'm not sure if it's going to be an exact bolt-on on that engine, but that's also something I'll let you guys know really soon, because there is a C63 coming in later for a manual swap. So yeah, and if it turns out different, I will obviously also be making another kit for that as well. So for the M113 side, the transmission bolts that come out from your car are also going to work with this one. I've sized everything accordingly, so you can reuse the same bolts. But for the 350Z side, I'm supplying all the bolts that you will need for the transmission. The sizes are a little different than stock, and yeah, it's just going to avoid you guys for looking around for hardware and stuff. So these are the flywheel adapters. So this one is going to come in 2 different bolt patterns, because I believe the engines for 2006 had a different bolt pattern. I still need to make sure what exact year or time it was when they changed the bolt pattern, but that's something I will find out, and to make sure that I don't send you guys the wrong parts. The flywheel bolts are going to be included in the kit because these are only one-time use. And these are both from a Porsche 911. These are also going to be included in the kit that are going to bolt this adapter to the other one, and also for the 350Z flywheel to be bolted onto this adapter. This is a pilot bushing for the 350Z, and I'm also going to include this in the kit just so that you guys don't have to press these in yourself. I will actually press these in for you before supplying this kit, so that, yeah, it's just going to save you guys an extra step. Other than that, this kit is pretty much like a simple bolt-on, no modifications or anything required to do to the engine or transmission. Everything just literally bolts on. I have not listed this kit on sale yet because there's still a few things that I need to do. I need to make fixtures so that like I can put parts in the CNC machine, and everything is already zeroed and everything, so it takes less time to basically cut these parts. And secondly, I need to source materials and like find better sources for buying all these parts, because literally like 70% of the cost of this transmission adapter comes from all the materials, the hardware, the cutting tools and everything. So if I can drop that down, I can offer you guys a better price on these. So that's why I haven't listed these for sale yet. I just need to work out these few little things, and hopefully even as soon as next week, I think by the time the next video comes out, hopefully this should be listed for sale. I will also leave a link whenever this gets listed in the description of this video. So this is going to be everything for this video. In the next one, we are going to be dropping the automatic transmission out of this car, putting in the 350Z transmission, and we'll finding out how easy or difficult that turns out, and of course making new billet parts along the way. So yeah, it should be a pretty interesting video, but there's still quite a way to go for this car. Even after the transmission is in and the drive shaft is linked and everything, we still need to work on the electronics, make sure that the Mercedes electronics would work properly with this swap. So yeah, all that is going to be coming in future videos. Stay tuned for that, and I will see you guys soon.